Back with us on the SportsMax Zone. Breaking news in the world of sport and outside. The House, controlled by the Democrats, of course, in the United States, voting to impeach President Trump for a second time. The vote is, well, the numbers suggest that it's a formality from here on in. And of course, we told you at the top of the show that James Harden, well, he'll get his wish and he'll be moving to the Brooklyn Nets from Houston Rockets after saying that the Houston Rockets are not good enough to challenge for a championship, and that the things that are broken between himself and the Rockets management, that those things are unfixable. And the team moved to bar him from attending practice on this Wednesday, and then the leak emerged that the deal had been done and that he'll be going to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for a set of players. We hope that by the time we have our NBA segment later on in the show, we'll be able to give you some details to go with that. But James Harden to the Nets. Sources inside the NBA say it's a done deal. Cricket is what we'll start with on the show today, though, because the West Indies senior men's team, that team is in Bangladesh preparing for a one-day international series set to start on January 20. The Windies are set to begin training on Thursday, provided all players pass a second COVID-19 test. They'll then play their first practice game on January 18. The ODI vice-captain, Sunil Ambris, is optimistic the Caribbean men can win the series. He says, "It is obvious that we have a very inexperienced team traveling to Bangladesh, but having said that, I think it is a talented bunch of guys. Once we stay positive and do what we know we can do, we should be okay. Once we play some good cricket, we can win the series." Yeah, so that's the situation that's the situation from the perspective of Sunil Ambris, a man who finds himself in position to be the second in command of the ODI team after the usual suspects opted out of touring Bangladesh at this time. We had him on the show yesterday. I said nothing about Manchester United being top of the league because now is not the time to talk about Manchester United being top of the league and Liverpool being second. And I just said it because I had to say it. I'll leave all of that for now. Fazeer Mohammed is the man lying in wait to speak with us. Good afternoon again, Fazeer. Quick turnaround for you.
Indeed, and just to let you know that, do you know that provocation is a justifiable defense?
Yes, sir, it is. I'm sure it is in your neck of the woods over there in TNT. I'm not so sure about Jamaica, so I'll stay here and provoke you via satellite.
Okay, I'll take it.
There you go. Faz, Ambris and company preparing for a game against the Tigers. Bangladesh in ODI cricket are a potent team, we must say. On the bare numbers, in terms of the production of the players involved in both teams, does this West Indies potential lineup have a good chance of winning this three-match ODI series?
I don't think they have a good chance. They have a chance because in any sporting contest, you never know what could happen. But on the balance of things, when you look at the relative experience of the two teams, the fact that Bangladesh have had a pretty decent record, in fact, a very good record against the West Indies, although the last time they would have played would have been way back at the World Cup in 2019 when they chased down that total of 322. The fact remains that the West Indies are again finding themselves in a situation struggling to really be competitive in these key formats of the game, also even in the T20. So I would say, just to answer your direct question, that the West Indies, I don't think have a good chance. They have a chance just because they're competing, and we can only hope from a West Indian point of view that they will lift their game to really push the Bangladesh Tigers in their own condition.
Perhaps it is, Fazeer, that leadership on the field in terms of the decisions by the captain has a greater effect on the performance of the team in white ball cricket than it is in red ball cricket. Do you think the fact that the leadership of this West Indies white ball team is not as attuned to the roles that they've been asked to take on as those who have not gone to Bangladesh, do you think that will hinder the team, or could something good emerge from this situation?
It could actually galvanize the squad, because I think, as Phil Simmons alluded to it, and we talked about that just a bit yesterday, that if your players can recognize that, look, whatever the issues, that you can't do anything about it. You've been given an opportunity, whether you felt you were deserved or you were not deserving of it, whatever the situation, you are there. You are there representing the West Indies. And I know a lot of people have almost been rather facetious in Clive Lloyd's letter, his open letter to the West Indies players, saying that, all of that really is not going to make that much of a difference. I think what he's trying to do, for whatever it's worth, is to try to remind these players that what they are doing whether they are second-rate, whether they're from the Kerry Packer era who are ridiculed as second-rate, in so many different aspects along the way in our West Indies history, you are representing a great legacy. And I don't think enough of our players of the present era, and indeed many of our fans and many of our media, appreciate the enormous legacy that is West Indies cricket. So just to remind them of that, and to tell them that, look, yes, you're up against it, yes, you're underdog, but get together, realize you're playing for a region with a great history, and even if you're overwhelmed, go out there giving up your best for the West Indies.
Yeah, Faz, you know, we spoke a lot about these players trying to grab an opportunity. We discussed that previously, and George alluded to the fact just now that, you know, there are players here and the leadership of the team will be under a lot of pressure to perform. A quick comment on Fazeer Mohammed. I remember him being a vice-captain to the West Indies under-19 team at one of the World Cup tournaments. I think Leon Johnson was a captain then. The vice-captain who we just heard from, Sunil Ambris, actually has a batting average of 44 in ODI cricket. So we're talking about two men who will lead this team. Mohammed in particular had shown a lot of promise some years ago. He hasn't delivered, but he may just see this as an opportunity to resuscitate his career.
Absolutely, because he believes he still has a chance of playing Test cricket for the West Indies, believe it or not, at the age of 33 going on 34, and some will say that's utterly ridiculous, but nothing is out of the realms of possibility, certainly not in West Indies cricket. And we all recall how impressive he looked, if we could cast our mind back, just 3 years old, just almost 4 years, to that home one-day series against Pakistan, when he scored that brilliant 90-odd in Guyana, and the West Indies, for the first time ever, successfully chased a target of over 300. And indeed, throughout that series, he looked the part. And at the end of the day, you wondered, where did he go off the rails? Where did he lose that focus that didn't allow him to be consistent? And he's acknowledged that. He's acknowledged that, like so many of our talented cricketers around the region, they really have not capitalized on the opportunities that they've been given. Here he is, on the wrong side of 30, not yet established himself in the West Indies team, but with the role of captain, he has yet another opportunity. Not many people get the opportunity to fulfill a dream on the wrong side of 30 in competitive sports, certainly not in cricket and so on. So here's another opportunity. And if you can't motivate yourself, if you can't galvanize your troops around you and really lead from the front in a situation like this, I don't know what else can.
Yeah, and we have to mention too that the bowling attack headed by the likes of Shamar Holder, who we think should have been in the test squad anyhow, and Alzari Joseph, experienced and young, has some potency to it. So they could use some of these strong areas or areas of, you know, seeming strength to propel themselves.
Of course, but they've also got to be sensible about it, because it was expected that the West Indies would have steamrolled Bangladesh in defending 322, and we all knew what happened, simply because the players lost their discipline. There was indiscipline in the field, there was lethargy in the field, there was poor bowling, there was a level of complacency. Now, by the same token, I'm making the point that there should be no lack of motivation, there should be no complacency. So whether you think you can bounce out Bangladesh the way you did in the Caribbean in 2018 when they were routed for 43 in Antigua at the start of that brief test series, you've got to really do all the basics right. You've got to ensure that even if with that element of intimidation and extra pace, you've got to be mindful of the conditions. You've got to be mindful of your 10 overs and ensure that you play your part. So yes, it's about really firing it up if you can, but also bowling sensibly depending on the circumstances.
It is professional to take your rivals seriously all the time, but is there the danger, Fazeer, that on the Bangladeshi side, they could look at this West Indies selection and say, well, Pollard is not there, so-and-so is not there, he's not there, he's not there, and maybe take this West Indies selection lightly?
Absolutely no chance of that happening whatsoever, George, because as we were discussing yesterday, Bangladesh are nowhere near the pinnacle of world cricket. They may be tigers in their own backyard, but they're almost minnows virtually everywhere else, with the odd exception. And because of that, they will latch on to every opportunity. They recognize who they're playing against, the West Indies, which is a global brand, even if it's diminished significantly over 25 years. For many people in other parts of the world, beating the West Indies is a big deal. When the West Indies had that depleted squad in 2009 in the Caribbean, Bangladesh saw that as a golden opportunity and grabbed it. And they're going to do the same here. There's no chance whatsoever of them being complacent, taking on the West Indies in this series upcoming.
Yeah. just before we break, Fazeer, and I'm not being troublesome here, but I'm listening again to the tone of the conversation that we had on Tuesday's show and that we've had so far. It's almost as if we are analyzing and discussing the West Indies and Bangladesh's chances and almost equalizing them. And yes, I don't like to live in the past, but for what the West Indies is, isn't it a crying shame, Fazeer, without discriminating against Bangladesh, that we're talking about the West Indies and Bangladesh and we're looking for positives to see how the West Indies can be competitive?
George, you are reinforcing the blindingly obvious. The fact that the West Indies, and again, we like to talk about the 1980-1995 era of invincibility. The West Indies were a force to reckon with from the late 1940s at the end of World War II. We have had a record that has produced some of the greatest cricketers to ever walk across a cricket field in any part of the world. And to have to endure this for 25 years and to find ourselves correctly, as you said, trying to create some sort of dynamism about this, it's very painful, but it is the reality that we have to face.
It is what it is. Hold the line, Fazeer. Don't go anywhere. We're taking a break. We're coming right back.